how do you feel that it's approached the dealer relationships or maybe evolved that relationship over the last year or two?
We've offered up to dealers who have that question mark, and with conversation with people like me or their DSM on the ground, if they can't get to a place where they can wrap their head around the light at the end of the tunnel, the vision, if you will, they may not be good partners for us. And we've been really clear from the top to communicate that and say, if this isn't good for you and your business and you don't see the path, let's get out of the business together. Like let's find a way out of this. And we've been really proactive on any dealers who have said they want to do that. It's not difficult.
All right. Well, I mean, look at this handsome guy, Brian Croft. Welcome back to the Dealership Fixit Podcast. How's it feel to be on the other side of the mic, my man?
It's different and it's dynamic. So I'd say it feels good. I was excited to talk to you.
Excited to talk to you, man. It's been too long. And, for those listeners who may not know, Brian Croft is the original creator and host of the Dealership Fixit Podcast, but it's mine now. And I get to be the host and have you on as a guest. So, well, Brian, you're not only a former host of the podcast here, but you're an industry guy. That's mainly what I wanted to kind of catch up with you today. Obviously, you're now with the KTM Group, but you've had history with Trader Interactive and a whole bunch of other companies here in the industry. Let's just kind of go through a quick walk down memory lane and just kind of tell us a little bit of your history and where you're at now with the KTM Group.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I didn't prepare my resume, but I'll give you quick highlights, if you will. I don't know. I was a motocrosser growing up, thought I wanted to be in the business, thought one day I'd own a dealership. So I moved from upstate New York to Dallas, Fort Worth and got in the business at a Yamaha dealer. And probably a year into that, I started second guessing, do I want to own one of these contraptions that is a dealership? So I pumped the brakes on that and then just enjoyed my time working in shops, getting to know the different positions. I actually started in a service writer position, which I'd tell anybody it's probably the worst job in the dealership because you're definitely getting the highest expectations from a customer walking in. Everything's always sort of expected to be warranty when it's a new machine. You gotta be able to communicate what's going on in service when you don't even know the technical stuff as well as a mechanic. So that was my jumping into the business, and then parts, other dealerships, and then it was, I don't know, a handful of years later, I ended up moving to a position where I wasn't in a dealer, but I was calling on them. And just like this interaction, probably it was a bit of a fish out of water culture shock. You go from what you've established as, okay, I can do this. I've done this a bunch of times, dialed. And then you get onto the other side of the counter and you're selling to guys behind the counter, and it's a learning curve. So,
and that was with WPS?
No, I went to from dealership. I went to work for Scott Goggles.
Scott, that's right. Yeah.
Yep. That was the first job outside of a dealership. And if I'm honest, for me, the dealership was tough. I think I like to be seeing something different every day. And at a dealership, you don't always get that, right? You get a lot sort of, I don't know, white noise. Things become white noise. You're used to maybe how good or bad something looks in the dealership.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed being out and about, traveling, seeing dealers. So I did that for, I don't know, a couple of years with Scott and traveled the entire South Central US. It was awesome. I didn't get paid hardly any money, but I loved the job. A lot of fun. And then
nice legacy brand, Scott, right? Been around for a while.
One who, I started out my racing with. That was my very first sponsor, where I signed a contract with Bevo 40 and the Scott guys to do, get this % off stuff, buy it direct, here's what you got to do it. So that was a lot of fun and definitely, I don't know, probably set the bar. I don't want to go work for no dogs. I don't want to go working for a company that's just shooting for mediocrity. That sort of, I've never wanted to do that. So.
And then from there, you worked with the American Honda Motor Company, WPS, NPA, Mannheim, Airhawk and Danny Gray Custom Seats. I mean, you've been around, my friend. Yeah, you got a little late.
You've seen the movie Forrest Gump, right?
Yep.
That's sort of, I feel like that's the Forrest Gump of this business, and not intentionally, but I do find that I have a tendency to how do I say this? I have a tendency to not want to tolerate things I don't enjoy. If I can't find a way to enjoy it, I pull the plug, and sometimes prematurely, probably, as you'd seen some of those places I was at was a year or 2 years in that sort of zone. And that's not a lot of time, but sometimes you can see that what they want and what you feel like you want to do on a daily basis and who you want to be out there fighting for. Sometimes you're on different pages. And in my opinion, it's good to get rid of it.
Now you're with KTM, and you've been there for over 2 years now, I think almost 3.
Yeah, it'll be, over 2 years now. Feels like a lifetime. Stuff's always changing in the business, and KTM's had a lot of change. Let's definitely use that term has been the standard here, which I can appreciate. It's always easy, but.
So manufacturer, dealership, auction, with Manheim and NPA, distributor, parts manufacturers. I mean, what do you think is the biggest differences in those types of worlds that all kind of cater to the same industry?
Man, I feel like, and I felt like this even back in the days at Honda, I definitely feel like a manufacturer of, let's say, motorcycles, right? So maybe the highest level manufacturer in our business, the understanding of what a manufacturer does, should do, and is different for every manufacturer, is so far removed in understanding from most dealers, and vice versa, right? I think that I like the idea of a Venn diagram or something where we can see an overlap. And a lot of times it feels like both sides are not leaning into the Venn diagram, if you will. So that's been a struggle. And like I say, it was a struggle at a previous manufacturer I worked for. And all I can say is, at this point, I can tell you that I do my best to try to overcompensate for sometimes it's a relationship issue. There's a lot of sort of bad press, and a whole lot of it not even relatively true. Some of it's true, and some of that sort of makes it hard because not everybody communicates. Like if you're a dealer and a customer comes in and tells you something, and it's, oh, that's frustrating. I hope that's not true. The internet said it, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll tell their rep, and sometimes they won't. Sometimes they're just cold and they're not sharing, and I can appreciate, maybe you don't have time, bandwidth and that sort of thing to get into that. But I'd say that's an area where a job as a manufacturer or as a dealer representing a manufacturer, I feel like is really tough right now.
Yeah. It's a little contentious, especially with maybe guys like yourself that are pushing the initiative of the manufacturer to the dealers. Like, you got to take more inventory. Dealers are kind of getting stuffed right now from not just, KTM, but from all the manufacturers. We hear it all over the place. But let's talk a little bit about what you do right now. You're an inside sales manager in the central region there out of Kansas. You serve a couple different states. What exactly do you do for KTM?
Yeah, so previously was the center part of the country, and they've expanded. I've got now pretty much central to West Coast plus Hawaii and Alaska. Oh. So the dealers I work with are, the way this company does it, I actually really appreciate that they have this, because not every manufacturer does this, where, it's, I think, and obviously I don't sit high enough on the totem pole to look at like budgets and those sort of things, but I can appreciate and understand that for a DSM doing his or her rounds, right? Running around seeing their dealerships and trying to go and have these, good conversations at every visit. For the guys that are further off the beaten path, that are further out, like Alaska, for example, right? We don't have a DSM on the ground out there. In the rest of the country, we have a bunch of DSMs. But they, obviously the company, the way that I signed up for this job is to be working remotely with a little bit of travel to those dealers. And it's going and seeing them virtually, which most of these guys aren't wanting to do video calls with me, although I'm ready to do them if that's a good way to do it. I have seen a stack of them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
But it's mostly phone, email, text. But some of these guys I've had for, 2.5 years that I've been here. I've had them the whole time. And I mean, I consider some of them friends at this point.
Yeah.
Probably like you'd typically expect, but they're guys who I may or may not have actually met in person. So I don't know. Maybe you're not really friends at that point, but definitely you've gotten deep enough connection.
And so you discuss with them kind of what's going on with the new releases, model mixes, rebates going on, promotions, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So as a manufacturer, and obviously I'm just, sort of relaying from my perspective how this looks and how it feels. as a manufacturer, you've always got something going on, right? You're making motorcycles in this case. And the idea being, okay, what can we make? When can we get it there? And what's the appetite for it?
Yeah.
During COVID, the CEO here in the US was very upfront saying, hey, we throttled up. We know that there was demand, pent up demand. Boom. Well, obviously that served us and our dealers very well until it didn't, right? Until the fall off began to happen. At that point, I was just coming in. I came here in 2023. And when I came here, retail was still really good. We had guys that were still up by double digits. We had some guys who were off and missing months and whatever. And bad news was we had product coming. It already was made. It's on the way.
Yep.
So it becomes a whole different problem, which, the point at which we've gotten to now here, as we're discussing this, we're November 25. The point at which we're at right now, I daily have 5 or 6 requests for machines I cannot provide to dealers. So we're really, we've flipped, and it happened pretty quickly. And it's not with every single machine. Like certain bikes, I can go and say, okay, I've got dealers that have 1 or 2 of those in stock. And I might have 1 of those in stock in our, what we call the free market, to ship them. But really, it sounds like from the numbers I've seen and what our national management has said is we're really on a good track right now to be in a great position. And, I don't want to be, I'm an optimist by nature. I tend to be, so I don't want to be unrealistic, but the trend line and how I see it going.
All right. So let's get back to KTM, right? I would say global manufacturer, right? KTM Group this year has had a lot of buzz, and that's been pretty widely talked about in most of the publications. Some product launches, some leadership moves, some changes even in the dealer network. You just explained that you took over most of the West region, right? So what's kind of the story with KTM from an insider's perspective? I mean, what's the kind of tone right now with the OEM side of it?
So, obviously there's layers to the organization, and some of which I'm not in direct contact with. And that would be like Austria and what's going on with Bajaj helping us and keeping us, I don't know, in play, if you will.
Yep.
I don't know. I think people can look at it from a lot of different lenses, but right now I'm really optimistic about what they have going on and where we're at. People can take that as they wish, and a lot of people don't look at it. They look at it from a very critical lens. But as of right now here in the US, we've been in a really good position. We haven't had, I don't know, I can't throw numbers around, but we haven't had enough inventory where there's been a concern here. Our continual retail, our continual wholesale, those amounts have just shrunk up a little bit. And then of course, production was reduced on purpose to make sure we don't have a excess of inventory. But I will say that it's a lot of optimism, and here within the last couple of months, it's only been increased. We've got new 390 product that's really desirable. That stuff's made through our partnership with Bajaj, right? Until it landed,
That's the RC and the Duke 390.
Well, not the RC this year. We don't do the RC 390. It's any of the smaller bore products, so the 250, 390 stuff, and then Husqvarna would be like a 401. But any of that stuff is made through that partnership, and it puts it at the right price point. It's made to our, expectations on quality. It's made for, like I say, the price point though. But the media was just off the hook on it, and that's what we expected. But it's been such a tough go in the business, right? And not just for us, for our dealers. They talk about other brands and, oh, this is the struggle over here. For sure. It was a huge benefit. And again, it's one of those where as soon as we provided the product to them, they're asking for, okay, how can I get 1 or 2 more of these? Yeah. That's a great position to be in. But at the same time, it's not preferred. You don't want to have a guy say, oh, I can sell more of these. And sorry, we don't have them. But that's just part of the process as we go.
How do you feel that KTM's approach, since kind of all this went down, how do you feel that it's approached the dealer relationships, or maybe evolved that relationship over the last year or two?
So I have to make sure I'm not talking about things that I shouldn't say on a broadcast, if you will. But I do think I've really appreciated the way that the company has made it for dealers who have looked at, hey, we stock one of your brands, we are your brand in our market, and who couldn't get past, the financial stuff that happened that we worked through in the restructuring, the potential changes, the stuff, oh, Bajaj, what's going to go on there? You guys are quality is going to be a problem. we've offered up to dealers who have that question mark, and with conversation with people like me or their DSM on the ground, if they can't get to a place where they can wrap their head around the light at the end of the tunnel, the vision, if you will, they may not be good partners for us. And we've been really clear from the top to communicate that and say, if this isn't good for you and your business and you don't see the path, let's get out of the business together. Like let's find a way out of this. And we've been really proactive on any dealers who have said they want to do that. It's not difficult. We don't make it hard. Like I say, I can't give you details on that stuff, but
yeah,
we've, like I say, it's been really encouraging. As much as you don't want to talk to somebody and they say, yeah, I want to terminate this brand with you, because I know, what went into it. That was something that they were excited about, a vision, part of their business plan. They invested money, time, energy, all that stuff into it to get it and work toward, being a representative of the brand in the market that they sit in. So I don't take any of that lightly, but it is conversations that I feel like the company's been really proactive and really fair on all that.
Yeah. That's never easy conversation, talking about terminating a brand or a franchise at a store, but it's nice to hear that you guys are kind of open to it, right? You're receptive to it and not resistant. What do you think with the dealers that have kept on with the KTM brand? There are many. What do you think is kind of the edge this year that KTM has given their dealer base in 2025 and leading into 2026?
Well, it ends up all, I think, coming back to desirable product. For us, some of the highlights of the year so far have been, like I say, the 390 product, not to make it a thing out our product the whole time, but 390 Adventure, 390 Enduro, those new R models. Everyone we get in goes out the door. Initially, when we had them, they were all inbound and dealers were, just trying to pre-sell them. I had so many dealers that went in and out that very same month, so good position to be in now with our production. We had a production shutdown because we had to get parts back up into position to be able to build. And by the time we did that and have the second tier of those things come in, it was late in season. So that was a little bit of a struggle, but the product itself, highly desirable. The media was off the hook, which you never know, right? The media can grasp onto something and say it's wonderful, but here's all the problems with it. And not every product or any product's going to be problem free, but we've been really lucky and really fortunate with those things. The hard work that the team that designed, built those things and brought them to market, crushed it. And then we just launched some new, like a 990 RCR. You've probably seen that thing, right? We're getting back into true sport bikes, and I was in the industry when KTM had a sport bike before, but we're back, and I don't know if you've seen the media, but they're insane about it. And I have a lot of guys with pre-sold bikes. Those things will start arriving, I think, end of this year, beginning of next year.
That's awesome.
And another one in the 450 and 250 factory editions, we just launched a program for those. And you probably saw as of this week, we launched, who's on the team and what all that looks like on KTM side of the business.
Yep.
And that's exciting too, because we're doing some stuff that no one's done, to put full pro level components on those factory editions for a fraction of the price of what somebody pays for them to put it on an aftermarket with us. That's exciting. Like I say, so I would just say, in a nutshell right now, the dealers that I'm talking to, and it's about 40 guys that I work with, they're very excited about that. Again, we always have some problems. We're always working through those. I think that's pretty typical to a manufacturer representative sort of position for the dealer in the market. But been really uplifting the last 3 months.
That's great, man. That's great. It sounds like a lot of fun stuff is happening, and it's kind of getting back to the core, back to the business. Let's go ride,
Yeah. Well, if not to go down the rabbit hole too far, but did you happen to watch any of the different stuff or look at the different press stuff that went out there the last couple of days with the new 450s and the team and stuff?
I have not. No, I got to go check that out.
So the only reason I point that out is I feel like it's really representative of the company willing to do things that people would say, you're not going to do that. So Eli Tomac, right, was on Yamaha.
Yep.
OG, right? Everybody's been saying, he's not going to KTM. We all know the sticking point is he would never ride a hydraulic clutch. He would never do that. And of course, KTM's not going to build a cable clutch for him. And all the media came out showing him on the bike and showing a picture of him riding a bike with a cable clutch on a KTM. And I just thought that was so perfect. I thought it's going to short circuit the internet. It's all going to shut down because there's so many people that were certain that would never happen. It'll never be never something that can come to fruition. And I just feel like it's been, the momentum has been good for us. And like I say, in the last couple of months after coming out of the restructuring, and having good product. And then of course, this sort of thing, showing people that we're willing to do what it takes to
That's great.
Be a player.
So will he be riding a KTM at the Supercross in January?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going. Are you going?
Not to make light of it. We've got, Plessinger will be back. I think he's been 5 years with the brand. We got Jorge Prado is back. And those guys look really good on the bikes and the press videos I watch. So I'm pretty pumped to see, January, Anaheim, what happens.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm going, the AIM Expo is a couple days before that Supercross weekend there. So going to try to hit two birds with one stone. So it'll be fun. Yeah.
Business and pleasure.
Yeah, man. Business and pleasure. That's right. Taking the wife, All right. So let's kind of just broaden it up a little bit and just kind of talk about the state of the industry, right? So, know more about KTM or include them if you want, but really what I wanted to get across here was, you talk to a lot of dealers across the region. You mentioned earlier that some also are expressing some issues with their other brands or kind of what's going on in their store. What do you think right now are the biggest challenges dealers are seeing? Is it sales? Is it staffing, inventory? I mean, what is it?
Well, it would appear, and again, I say it and I don't want to generalize because I'm decoupled quite a bit from reality. I do get to last month, I was in a bunch of my dealers but I'm not in there all the time. I don't live their reality, so I don't want to talk about it like I know it. What it appears to be is there's definitely some affordability issues going on in terms of the average person to be able to buy vehicle, interest rates, that sort of thing. So the actual amount of retail consumers, hot, ready to buy is reduced right now. And I hear that consistently from guys like, oh, I was sweating it. The month ended up okay, but I was sweating it. I didn't have enough going on and I didn't know what to do about it. I do find though that I don't want to be a Sherlock Holmes after the fact to these guys, but I do want to look and okay, well, they're saying they're not getting much going on. What's happening? What are they doing? What are they not doing? Mm-hmm. And I find that there are dealers, and I won't name names for sure, but there are dealers who are, set it and forget it. Hung my shingle up front. I'm in business. Where are all the customers? So I know there's a lot of solutions. Obviously, I've worked for several of the different folks who offer different things, and I've been excited about those things. So I still talk about those things with my dealers. But there's a bandwidth issue right now. And maybe that's not unique to right now, but I feel like it's maybe even further than in the previous years. Guys are maybe reducing staff, right? So they're juggling more of their own workload. They're not, I don't want to say they're not trying new things. I mean, there's guys who I encourage, are you in a 20 group of any kind? Are you doing that sort of thing? Are you making sure to look with your peers and best practice sort of things?
Love 20 groups.
Yep. But I do find a lot of guys that I've talked to over the years will say, yeah, I like the idea, but these different reasons why they don't. So I think that, like I said, the affordability, but what's shocking is our best selling machines that no one can keep in stock are always our most expensive ones, right? So, I don't really know how to square that up, except to say that there are certain people who have enough money in their pocket to go buy the toy and they want the best version of something. But, we definitely don't shy away from, we sell, I'm sure, the most expensive. I don't look at the competitors' price points all the time, but I'm sure we sell the most expensive motocross 450. I'm sure we sell the most expensive, 300 two-stroke enduro bike.
Yeah.
And, that's been more of a positive than a negative. But I do think that, what the dealers are up against is the rate at which they pay on their flooring. That's through the roof. And guys will tell me examples of their flooring bills. And I know that that's very sort of different for every dealer, what they could tolerate and what it would be an unacceptable amount.
Yep.
But I've heard some stories about that right now. And, thankfully I've heard a lot of dealers tell me that we're not their biggest problem in terms of, I got some flooring. I know I'm going to pay some flooring. It's part of the cost of doing business, but I do worry about some of the guys who have some bigger flooring bills with some other product that I'm always shocked is still strong, like side-by-sides, for example.
Yeah.
I love side-by-sides. I don't own one, right? I still want one. My wife wants one. The kids want one. But I worry about dealers who have a real good, strong market for that and have stepped up on their inventory levels and are in a bad spot with flooring bills for that. So I worry about that. That seems to be a other than the not enough retail customers coming through, that's sort of a double whammy when, the rates are high and you're paying that.
Yeah, yeah, we're seeing a lot of the same stuff too, just like you said, in the UTV market. And those are kind of a double-edged sword because they're expensive to carry on a floor line and you're getting juiced every month. But a lot of these showrooms were not originally designed to house a 14-foot long, 5-foot wide one unit, that costs, 30,000 plus. So, that's really kind of what do I do? I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. And it kind of becomes a sitting problem, right? That inventory age is terrible. You mentioned earlier that a lot of these operators are kind of having a bandwidth problem. Do you think it's more of like they're just doing too much and not going very fast, or is it like a gap in the operation that you're seeing?
Well, I have to liken it to, and again, the dealers I'm working with may not be the largest volume dealers, the largest staffed dealers, and that sort of thing, but I do feel like a lot of them are running a tighter ship. There's less staff there to do the different jobs and to pay attention to the different details. I was talking to a dealer earlier today who was talking about how it's his job to do a lot of the warranty reconciliation. I was like, aren't you the owner? Haha. But he was like, yeah, that's part of what I have to do, staffing wise. Right. So when I want to call them and talk to them about Moto Hunt or something, right? Cause I've talked to plenty of dealers about that, and, when I want to call and talk to them about, hey, what are you doing over here? It's like, dude, I got so much going on right now with end of month, beginning month. Okay, I know better. I know better than to try to call and have a decent conversation in those times. But
Right.
we're mid-month, right, or something like that, and trying to have a conversation about, hey, what areas, here's what I'm seeing. Tell me if I'm missing it, but I'm seeing this area where a little bit of time and energy from you might be really rewarding for your business.
Yeah.
And dealers, to me, when I'm talking about that, they're receptive. But I think the bad news is, again, I work for a manufacturer, and what we're trying to do is get more toys of what's going on. How can we help you retail more of these things? Okay, well, you got to have them. How many do you want to have? How many do you want to retail? But again, I think there's
How many have you sold previously? What's your market saturation look like?
it's always crazy to me because you think about, you sold X in 12 months. Shouldn't you stock Y, right? Like they should be pretty easy to figure out. And it's really just, what percentage of retail do you think you're going to be at? Again, we're asking for a crystal ball in an unknown time with high rates and hard to get, people to come out. And of course, the old idea that kids, are risk averse, right? The younger generation isn't as excited to go blaze down a trail or the road, right? As much potentially. Yeah. So they've got a tough job ahead of them. I'm at no shortage of different ideas and talking about ideas with different dealers. But again, I find it's hard to I can't have a 2-hour conversation on a phone call or video call with my dealers. It ends up being, got a deal. I got purple,
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm really encouraged by a lot of things, but I'm worried. I'm worried about them for those reasons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the flip side, those are obviously concerns. A lot of dealers have them. Looking at the other side of the coin here, what are the top dealers doing that kind of sets them apart as a good performance? What are those guys doing on a daily basis, or what kind of processes do they have that you're seeing?
I think, that's a bit of a question that, again, I would only be able to answer with my opinion, but I do think that with these brands, with these Austrian brands, right, we're KTM, Husqvarna, and Gas, with these brands, when we have a rooftop that has, let's say, 1, 2, or 3 of our brands, and they don't have a bunch of other one of every manufacturer, those are the guys who crush it in a market, and they sell hard into, not on purpose, but just they have a great reach and they have a great reputation because they know our product. The people that want to buy our product, I think they don't really tolerate dealers who think they know the details of it. So it's a real high bar, I think. So if I were to generalize, I would say a lot of dealers who have other things they can sell and their knowledge sets have to be spread out over a lot of different product lines, a lot of different brands. Those are the ones who maybe struggle the most with us because we are different. It's an Austrian product. We have a lot of things that we do that are different, right down to the basics of how do we place an order? How do we do, X, Y, or Z? The dealers who really seem to be crushing it right now are all in on our brand or brands. And like I say, minimally have some of these other brands. Now there's dealers who have lots of brands, but they have a dedicated, I don't know, a dedicated little microcosm of people in the dealership that are the, in KTM language, I think they're called orange bleeders. If you have somebody on your staff that you cut them and they just gush the orange blood, all over the customer is confident. They came to the right place. It's the real high level enthusiast, high expectations of understanding of the product line. I think that's a differentiator that I've seen in terms of, and again, it depends on your market and everything else, but we have a lot of guys who are, real destination locations. They're not on the main thoroughfare, the best place to be. People drive way out of their way to get to them. I've got one of our best dealers. They're not my account to work with, but I know the guys there and they're amazing, is Bees Moto Lab here in Wichita. And they have all three of our brands. And I think they do Cobra. I think they still do Cobra as well. Maybe some little e motorcycle, e-bicycle deal.
Yeah.
But they crush it. And I think the way that they crush it is the way that some of these other stores do it, is they're involved with the things we're involved with, the competition side of it. Racing doesn't mean you have to be at the races all the time. This particular dealer at Bees, I think they really are. They're involved and engaged with amateur and grassroots level racing. I think the dealer who thinks I'm going to sell a dirt bike, the customer that comes in that's a racer comes in to some of them and they're not even in the list. They might come in for art. There may not be their shop, so to speak. So I think that's where there's a differentiator between, expectations.
Well, shout out to Bees. Keep crushing it out there. Yeah. I want to double click on what you said earlier about kind of the boutique type of feeling, right? So, the world that I came from is every manufacturer and every possible pre-owned bike that you can have stuffed into one shop, right? That's the world I came from. But what we did was we did actually employ somebody to kind of manage that grouping of brand ambassadorship, if you will, right? We had a KTM specialist, we had a Triumph specialist, a Ducati specialist, because I agree, those, especially the European brands, the customer kind of dictates, hey, I am not a Japanese buyer. I am not a North American, manufacturer buyer. I'm a Euro buyer, right? And if that's KTM or Triumph or the other ones, and they kind of, I don't want to say are, snobbish, but they kind of have a different expectation because that's the brand that they've chosen. And not only expectation with the vehicle itself and the quality and all that stuff and the place that they buy it from, but also who's talking to them, right? They need to know their stuff, their specs, and kind of what model lines and availability there is. So do you think that that's kind of going to keep going that way in terms of customer expectations? They're going to get a little bit even more siloed and brand specific? Or do you think that it's just kind of like, we need cheaper models, and if KTM's got one, that's what I'll lean towards versus these other brands? I mean, what do you think that customer expectation shift is?
I think, I do think that probably much like when I worked at Trader and we'd look, I was always looking at data, looking at who's getting the activity, how much activity, where their leads coming from, those sort of things. I think the consumers, the expectation for, let's say, content, right? If as you know that my old saying is, if you don't have good real life photos of your motorcycles of what you have on the showroom, you haven't merchandised properly, you might as well have cardboard cutouts of the machines on the showroom. Like, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you just have cardboard cutouts, right? And that's being facetious. I'm busting balls, right, at this point. But at what level do you think the consumer's expectation is at? And you'll have a dealer who will say, well, we don't really have the time. We don't really have the need. Like, people will click on it and we still sell bikes, But I talk about engagement and who goes down sort of what rabbit hole and stays down there long enough to become, a ready buyer. So I don't remember what your original question was. I feel like I just went off on my own tangent.
What do you think the customer expectations are shifting towards as we move on?
I think it's they're continually higher level of discernment, and they expect that. So I would, if I were just telling a dealer right now who was like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about becoming a dealer of this brand from you. I'm going to send in my business plan and see if I can be considered for an open spot somewhere in the tree. I would encourage them to not do it if they're not 100% all in. And by all in, I don't mean when we send you an order program and say, here's your allocation, that you have to say, I'll take it blindly. That's probably a right number because you gave it to me. I think that the dealer should do the math, and they need to order what's right for them, understand the opportunity, the potential for, if you don't take the opportunity, what's the opposite? But I do think that that's what I would encourage is to say, if you're not 100% in on anything you're doing, eliminate it, get rid of it. And that includes the brands I work with. I would tell my dealers the same thing. This company, thankfully, really does expect a lot, and they expect a lot from everybody that works there. They expect a lot from their dealer network. And I really do think that's not everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be on the ball, right? You kind of were mentioning earlier that you thought about owning your own dealership one day, and you're talking to maybe the hypothetical guy that wants to open up a new KTM point. But if Brian Croft was running a store now in 2025, what do you think are the main operational areas you would prioritize first?
So because I talk about, dirt bikes, street bikes all day, I don't talk about side-by-sides. I don't want to pretend to know that space at this moment in time, right? I've been in that space in the past, but not today. I would say generally, dealers need to plan on, I think, having new machines from us, and they need to have some sort of offering of solid pre-owned.
Okay.
Same stuff you would, I'm sure, tell a dealer. They need to hedge their bet, because not everybody can either afford a new one or wrap their head around that reality yet. And like you and I both know, if I'm only KTM, but I've got some used machines, maybe I've got a Honda and a Cowie and a whatever, other brands in there, buy stuff that you're comfortable with. I know it's hard with a dirt bike or competition machine. What's happened to this thing in its life? It's probably not a problem I want to take. But using the tools that exist, I'm giving you a commercial here, using the tools that exist to price it right, to acquire the thing, right? Get yourself in a position where you can at least cut yourself loose, minimal loss as needed, but having that additional amount of, net cast. I mean, I hate to use the stupid, analogies that everybody used over the last handful of years, but I think that's a size of net issue, right? You can bring in a lot more. That's what one of the things I'd encourage. But I would sort of, if it were me and somebody were asking me about doing it, I was going to do it. And let's say I didn't know, I'd be checking out who's the best of the best.
Okay.
And I would show up. I would look at their online presence. I would see what they're doing. And I would literally go to their actual store and see what's going on there. Because you miss a lot, right? When you just see the virtual, as we were discussing earlier, most of the guys that are crushing it are doing a lot of the things properly, in my opinion, probably your opinion. The guys who are in the middle, I think, are languishing right now.
Yeah. Having started in service and parts before going to the OEM side, I mean, do you still carry a lot of what you learned from those early years into kind of how you're working with dealers now? I imagine the experience is always ingrained into you, but like, are things still the same when you walk into a dealership or have a conference call with them, or have they kind of shifted since your days?
Again, it's a little different for me because I'm not in there all the time. That's an area where I've always joked and said a remote phone salesperson, like an inside account sort of person, could be one of the toughest jobs in the business. Because you don't get the same level of understanding, all the inputs that you can gain physically walking in, all the smells, the sights, the sounds, what's going on. You get to you're out for a little while. You get to pick up on all these little cues. You're dialing in at best. You hear, is the person that answered sound rushed, frustrated? Like you pick up on maybe like being blind and your hearing gets better. That's kind of the life that I live now.
What do you carry with you from your early days being in the dealership to now?
I like to look at things logically. Because when I was in dealership, when I had some of my best, like as a parts guy, parts manager, you get a lot of people, a lot of vendors showing up at your door, writing you these wonderful, dream building in their catalog, writing you lots of cool hypothetical orders that would just kill it, And I like to apply, definitely, I'm an optimist and I get excited about stuff like that, products, but I also like to layer in that there's got to be a layer of logic in there. If I tell somebody that does, $80,000, $90,000 of parts with us in a whole year, a lot of it being hard parts, if I tell them they need to write a $150,000 stocking order for a season, they're going to think I'm out of my mind. They're not even going to respond. They're not going to probably take my call. Right. So I like to layer logic into it. And then try to find where's the opportunity that may have been missed. Hey, here's what I found out. I looked and it turns out that some of the dealers in your region are selling the heck out of this part. You've never stocked it.
Yeah.
Get that out. I'm not saying that they're going to all show up at your door to buy it, but I want you to know that that's a potential missed opportunity, right? That's sort of enlightening them with some of the logical pieces of it. But like a lot of things, that's a bandwidth thing, then it turns into being my bandwidth thing. Can I have in-depth conversations with every one of my dealers? I struggle. I try to do my best to really figure out, okay, what's got them bound up right now? What can I help with? What's the opportunity we're presenting? Getting a close, like a pitch and a close on that, if you will. But I rely heavily on logic. I would say that's probably and it was from my dealership days, and probably before that, is to look at things and say, okay, have we sold these before? We always sell 20 of these a year. Should I have 5 or 6 or 8 of them in stock? Probably.
Yeah.
Is the other piece I don't know about, something I could be enlightened about? And yes,
All right, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future of Powersports. So we've seen a lot of changes in the last couple of years. We've seen some consolidation. We've seen digital evolution, marketplaces, SaaS platforms, direct-to-customer shifts even. I mean, how is that affecting the dealership model, and where do you think all that is going?
Well, it's a lot of different things to talk about. I guess I'll go back to that. There's a lot that isn't being evaluated or tried because of bandwidth issues. Like if I'm talking to a dealer about, hey, where are you listing your products? I've got them on my website. Okay, great. Where else? Where else do you put them? Well, sometimes I share them on Facebook. Okay. Where else? Anywhere else? Any marketplaces? No, I was at Marketplace X and they were too much money and I wasn't getting but 1 or 2 leads or whatever. Okay, so we can have that whole conversation. I do think that a lot of those conversations, if you have enough of them, it ends up being pretty obvious that it's a bit of a deer in the headlights. Not in a, that they don't know. It's that they're choosing to do nothing when there's too many choices. I don't have the time to go down the rabbit hole and figure out the real deal about that. So I'm going to choose not to do it. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because this pays the bills. I think that, as you know, there's hopefully a lot of people like yourself or me or whoever who want to say, okay, you're doing this. Would you like to do this times X, twofold or threefold or whatever? And what would it take? Let's spitball about what you could do, whatever, I think that there's a lot, and I don't see that changing except, the AI component and what does that reality look like? The old, is there going to be robots driving around counting parts, inventory? And does that mean that now the parts people still exist, but they can do a better job and take more time with every customer? I'm a firm believer that's kind of where it needs to go, layer in those ways that you can sort of superhumanify, the staff with anything that exists that's technology like that. But it's, again, that's talk about Wild West, sort of, for dealers who, are used to old school dealers and counting part by hand and running in the back to get a single nut or bolt for somebody. And they go out the door, obviously, the staff all needs to be trained better to upsell. And I used to joke with, when I got to know some of my customers pretty well, and I was in Dallas, Fort Worth area working at dealerships, and I was no big upseller, supreme salesperson in that regard. But I can tell you that I'd always joke and I'd always ask the question. Somebody be opening up their wallet and I'd see some greenbacks in there and they're buying something for $10, a can of chain lube or whatever. And I'd be like, come on, what are you going to save that money for something? Like, this is where you should spend it. Okay, what do you got that I need?
Yep.
I hope that, that continues to be the case, the human factor. We can accentuate that, use technology to be able to do that. Obviously, getting a better inflow of people interested. But I think it's telling the story. And I'm probably going off on a completely different direction. But when I started the podcast, the idea was I was in dealerships all the time. I was talking to dealers. They had to do amazing stories, right? Stories that I thought, man, if somebody should record these, somebody should and I'm thinking oh, and then you think about certain dealers you'd be in, you'd put a microphone in front of, they're like, hell no, not going to do that. And I was told that. But initially it was, I wanted to be able to record and sort of immortalize their conversations. And that was my idea. And I found out, like I say, that there are dealers who, when I started it, dealers that I called on who were like, oh, I listened to your podcast. That's cool. Just don't think I'm ever going to come on it. And I'd be like, who invited you? I didn't invite you. I don't have you on my list. But people have their little secret stash. They think they're going to keep
Sure.
through. And, but that was sort of the reason why I even wanted to do the podcast, was to share stories. And it became really apparent to me, I don't know, probably 2 years or something into it. When I think it was probably 2 or so years into it that 2 of the people that I had interviewed passed away. And it was like, wow, okay. I don't really know. One guy, I didn't really know him, connected with him on LinkedIn. We had a great conversation about Google Analytics or whatever it was on the earlier podcast. And I heard he passed away, and it was like, wow, that's really sad. I should have done a better job. Not because I killed the guy, right? Nothing I did was the problem, but I felt like it was my opportunity to have that conversation and find out what makes that guy tick more than business.
Yeah.
Be a conversation with him. So that was sort of my vision for doing it. Of course, it turns into kind of, like you're having wonderful business conversations, getting experts on in different areas and bringing lots of knowledge. What I was looking for, and it's not really where I ended up doing it, but was a lot more learning about a human being that happens to be in the industry, sharing their story. And maybe they think it's a cool version of their story and they'd share it with their friends. And again, it wasn't because I thought I would ever grow, the podcast to be Joe Rogan or something. But I thought, man, it could transcend beyond Powersports if the stories are good,
Yeah.
And I still believe that, but maybe it's
but there's that bandwidth thing again. Yeah, no, I appreciate what you started, and the way that I always took information from it was, oh, this guy is doing it this way, or this guy has had this experience and it worked for him over here. And that could be maybe somewhat applied to another dealer that's listening. And that's kind of the direction that I've taken on here. And so in that same vein, I guess, I mean, what do you think are maybe some opportunities that that live for dealers right now? I mean, what do you think it is beyond the AI stuff? Or, maybe ordering more KTM bikes from you. I mean, new segments, new customer, new customer behaviors. I mean, what is the opportunities according to Brian Croft that dealers can take?
I think I would say if I were to try to distill it down, I believe at my core, it would be telling the story, right? Their story is ever evolving, right? If you look at a dealer's story, it's got to do with like, okay, well, why did I get in the business? What's my background? Why do I have the expertise to do this? But then you're thinking, well, you can't share that over and over. Like people are definitely not going to pay attention to that. But what could be shared? What's different? What's new? What's changed? Where do we see the business going? Like if I'm a dealer right now, I would be podcasting, and there are some that do it, right? I know Pandora's does it in Tennessee. I think they're still doing it. I haven't heard any lately, but those guys do a fun job talking about behind the scenes stuff. A bunch of guys sitting in a room and they're talking through the ups and downs and the different brands and whatever. And I think that's amazing. And if I'm honest, that's one of the other layers of when I was doing the podcast, I thought, okay, I want to share these people's story. But at some point, couldn't I also begin to help them, I don't know, do their own podcast or come on with me occasionally? And literally, I don't want to make it a commercial is what I was thinking. But come on, we talk through what's new with you. If it's something that you feel like the content is good and the production, how it comes out is solid, maybe you share that out. Maybe it goes out in an e-blast if people are still opening those, or maybe, it's something where it's prominent on your website. Because what you probably find the same thing. And again, I'm not on a lot of dealers' websites except the guys I work with now, but it's a lot of canned, same stuff. You can click here, it'll go to inventory. It's in stock
Templates.
It's a lot of those same things. And we've all learned to navigate through that. And I have to assume a consumer that's not an industry also knows how to navigate through all them because they've looked at multiple sites.
Yep.
But I think that the storytelling part of it is missing. I think dealers should be like, whether it's a video that's on their site that changes every single month. It doesn't have to be professional level production. I think we all know that. Consumers don't demand that. They demand real, and I think that that'd be an area where I'd like to see.
Don't you think that a lot of dealers are doing that through their social media channels now?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I do not. I think that the top 10% are doing that. That's my opinion, right? I don't have the data to back that up. That's my reach out of my gut and tell you what my feeling is. I think that a lot of dealers they've got one salesperson that takes over the account and posts and says, reach out to Jim when you're ready to buy. So I was some serving scenario, right? And I can appreciate that. If I was a sales guy, I'd be like, I'm going to have access to all these people, and I'm going to be able to do a little commercial for myself, this product, and then call Jim. But I don't think a lot of dealers are telling the story. Some are using the stories or, different areas of social. But the old, like, here's 2 customers that bought machines from us and there's their photo when they're leaving. I think that's fine. But I think that some more thought needs to go in it. And maybe that requires a whole separate mindset than a salesperson that's crunching through, getting a sale out the door. I snapped a photo. I was lucky to get that done. I can appreciate them. But I think they need to either outsource or internalize with somebody in their building who's going to take that and really, I don't know, color it up, add layering of the story, include it, share it. I don't know. That's just, that's sort of what comes to me.
Storytelling. I like it. I don't disagree with that. I think that a lot more dealers need to kind of brush up on their storytelling skills and use and leverage the tools that they have to make sure that it gets out there. The website video once a month, I think that's a great idea. Let me ask you this last question. Still looking ahead, what gives you the most optimism about the power sports industry right now?
I would say that even though the product mix has really diversified out, like it's splintered, total bell curve or long tail, however you want to look at it, it's a lot. I'm still encouraged that there are still people who, even though those machines that may be on the chopping block when times are tough, like budgets are tight or whatever, well, you can't keep that motorcycle that you ride 6 times a year and we pay all this money on it plus insurance. And I do feel encouraged that continues to be exciting product that people want to go and throw a leg over, which they need to go and enjoy themselves. It always seems to come back around. Now, it's harder these days. I think if I was a kid, a young person that's of the age where you can start getting into that stuff, and I had the level of how amazing video games and VR and all the things are now, maybe I wouldn't be as interested in breaking my leg to go ride it, But I do think that there's a whole lot of people that are constantly cycling through in the business. They may get out of it, they're back in it. I feel like there's enough of that, and I feel optimistic about that for sure.
Good. Yeah. Video games are hard to compete with. They take a lot less effort and you don't have to leave the house. So it's going to be tough. Yeah. The next last couple of years. Yeah. Getting the newer generation up and on the saddle, as they say, has been increasingly difficult. But it's going to take a kind of daily ritual almost to kind of just keep promoting and moving things forward as an industry, as the brands, as the dealerships, as local to these guys, to these customers, and just keep it moving, right? We got to keep them engaged.
Well, and I think telling, again, back to the storytelling, if the story that they want to tell is, for example, hey, we've got these really cool little, we call them balance bikes, right? Electric balance bikes. They're Stasics with our branding on them, right? And we sell a bunch of them every year for all 3 brands. And it's always around the holidays. The dealers that really crush it with that. And I'm always like, how's this dealer doing so many of those? What's the conversation? What are you guys doing? Oh, we have events. We have events where we encourage kids to come in. There's like whatever, the old hot dogs and, soda pops there. And the kids we have a little course set up, and kids that don't have one can come and try one. Parents have to sign a waiver sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's obviously just getting the experience had, so it's tell a story. What's the, I don't know, the hook or what makes somebody act. And again, I think that's a storytelling thing, and getting an experience in a younger group. My kids are not into motorcycles. When I had a big touring bike, they'd ride with me on the back and love that. They want to have a side-by-side. We don't have one of those. They're not interested in being on dirt bikes, and I'm probably a bit of a sellout because I'm okay with it. I've had some concussions when I was racing, and I think about that with my kids. But we may have tiptoed into it. They're into riding bicycles with me a little bit now, so we'll see.
Good. Yeah. Well, it's one step up from a bicycle to a motorcycle, so we're almost there. All right. Well, to kind of round out the end of our episode here, man, I appreciate you coming on again and sharing with us a little bit about you and kind of what you've been up to lately. On your previous podcast, you used to have a kind of a flash round, right? So just a couple quick questions, and I wanted to bring that back from the archives and hit you with them. Okay, so here's some quick fire questions. It's gonna be quick. Give me your first response. No ums and ahs. Are you ready?
Okay, ready.
All right. Number 1, the best piece of advice you ever got in this industry.
It would just be treat people the way you want to be treated.
Treat people the way you want to be treated. Love it. Okay. Next one, a dealership mistake that you've seen too often.
Well, I'll give you what comes into my head real quick, and it's just relying on automation. It's without verifying will get you in a world of hurt. So
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Automation can help or it can hurt. All right. What's your favorite KTM model right now?
Man, you got some tough ones. I don't know if there is a favorite. I always want one of each. So I would say right now today, if they were going to send me a bike and they're like, what bike do you want? It's a bike we don't have in the States yet, but it's supposed to, I think it'll probably come next in the spring or something. And it'd be the 1390 Super Adventure, which is
1390 Super Adventure. Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Okay. And the last one thing every dealer should do before the end of the year.
Well, hopefully they're evaluating their plan that they already had and seeing how they performed versus the plan, setting a new plan, and hold themselves accountable.
I love it. So the reviewing 2025, kind of in the middle of the last quarter here, looking ahead to 2026, making adjustments before it's too late.
Yep.
I love it. All right, Brian. Well, I do appreciate you coming on, man. I know you got to run. And any last parting words?
I'll just I'll correct something that I heard you say on a different podcast. Not that you need correction, but I thought I never shared this story with Jacob, so I figured I would share it with you now.
Please do.
I heard you on a podcast recently, and somebody was talking about, oh yeah, how did you start this podcast? And you mentioned my name, which I appreciate. It makes me warm and fuzzy inside. But when they asked, like, oh, where did that? And you said, I don't know, I think it was during COVID, and he probably had time on his hands.
Is that not true?
Well, initially I thought, I had to think back, right? It's been a handful of years, right?
Yeah.
Oh, now that I think about it, how exactly did that go? And I was like, oh shit, you know what? It was a year before COVID that I started it.
Oh, okay.
I was listening to podcasts because I was on the road a lot, and I listened to podcasts and I liked ideas and things that would get me creative. And I kept thinking, like, where's the Powersports ones? And I started thinking of myself as a young man in Powersports back in the day. And I kept thinking, how come nothing exists? I wasn't finding what I wanted to hear. And I was talking to a buddy of mine who was on the podcast, and it's Wild Ass Greg from Wild Ass Cushions. I was talking to him, and he's a real accountability guy. Like, he holds people accountable, himself accountable, and people accountable. Not in a mean way, just he'll expect you to do something you say you're going to do. And you know, we're talking, and it was a conversation. I said, you know what, I think I need to do a podcast. I don't know what I'm doing, but I think I could probably do one and have get conversations recorded from dealers and people in the industry that I didn't realize what a full-time job it would become to do that. But that was the conversation. And we got to the end of the year in 2018. And he said, what are you going to do for the new year? You're going to do your podcast? And I was probably at the edge, and he pushed me over, and I was like, yeah, I guess so. So I started a podcast. That was January of 19. So it was a year before COVID, and it feels like a million lifetimes ago at this point. But yeah, I guess I would encourage anybody in that same way. If it's something you think should exist, don't make a bunch of excuses. Try to find a way to make it exist. And maybe it's not forever. Maybe it is forever.
And make it happen. I love that. Well, thank you for the correction, sir. It's
No. I just figured I know.
Locked in now. It's locked in now.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, I think that's it. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you're not already. Again, thank you, Brian Croft, former host of the Dealership Fixit Podcast, now with the KTM Group, out there crushing it with the motorcycle sales and getting all the product out to the dealers and helping out with any problems that he comes across. So thank you again for coming on, Brian.
Thanks, Jacob. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, until next time, bye, everybody.
For a Powersports dealer, there are a lot of moving parts that have a direct impact on your income. That's why Moto Hunt Premium was developed. Designed specifically for dealers, Moto Hunt Premium allows you to quickly and easily manage your inventory. With streamlined pricing data from competitive dealership listings, JD Power Pricing Guide, and National Powersport Auction wholesale prices. Moto Hunt Premium also automatically identifies potential issues with your online listings to help you move your aging inventory and maximize your gross profits. Contact us today to take a test ride of the all-new Moto Hunt Premium and see how we can help your business grow and sell more inventory.